Good morning, dear students. Today I am going to take up I Have a Dream, which is your third lesson. And I Have a Dream was a public speech spoken by Martin Luther King Jr. This was a powerful speech. He was spoken during the march to explain the insecurities of Negro people, the Negro people who were suffered under the clutches of white people. So Martin Luther King Jr. he strongly spoken about his dream to get a liberty, equality in the states of America. Let's see about the author. Martin Luther King Jr. was born on January 15, 1921 in Atlanta, USA. During his childhood days, he was fascinated by football and baseball and he played them well. He was interested in the piano classes and he took piano training from his mother. He was a Christian minister. Minister means not a politician. Christian minister means preaching in a Christian institution. And also he was a minister in political field, like a activist, not a political minister. He wasn't a political minister, but he was an activist. At his young age itself, he had seen the discrimination between the white people and also black people. He had witnessed the discrimination, the racism. And at the age of 15, by his hard work and determination, he went to the college. And during his life, he met his future wife, Coretta Scott, in Boston. And in 1953, they got married. And his wife, Coretta Scott, helped him. And in 1955, he received his doctorate degree. He was strongly influenced by his Christian values because he himself was a Christian minister, and also his father was a Christian minister, a preacher. They were a preacher in a Christian institution. So he was influenced by Christian doctrines like forgiveness, love, liberty, non-violence, and not only from that, he was also influenced by Mahatma Gandhiji's values like non-violence, and he had used that non-violent in his march, in his protest. He was a peace lover activist. And King won the Nobel Peace Prize on October 14, 1964 for fighting the racial inequality through non-violent resistance. Unfortunately, at the age of 39, he was assassinated He was killed by a shot on April 4th in Memphis, Tennessee. Although he passed away at such young age, his work did not go in vain. He strongly spoken about the jobs, about the discrimination, about the economic rights of American Negroes under the white people. On his death, whole America mourned. They wept for this peace lover person figure. And the government of America had announced an holiday on remembrance of Martin Luther King Jr. And every year on this day, the government as well as the nation honors this magnificent personality. Not only that, the government had made many memorials. The streets were named after Martin Luther King. Okay, now let's have a little bit glance on his speech. This speech, as I told, this is a public speech, was spoken or was delivered by American civil rights activist Martin Luther King Jr. during the march in Washington for jobs and freedom on August 28, 1963, in which he called for civil and economic rights and an end to racism in the United States. He wanted to end this discrimination, and he was the final speaker, and he spoke boldly, and which was appreciated and which is remembered till now. This speech was delivered in front of more than 250,000 civil rights supporters from the steps of the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C. It was indeed a defining moment for the civil rights movement. Civil rights means ನಾಗರಿಕ ಕಾಯಿದೆಗಳು, ಕಾನೂನುಗಳು, ಹಕ್ಕುಗಳು. He expresses to see the equality between black people. He wanted to see one nation. He wants the equality in jobs, in economic rights for both, for Negroes as well as for whites. Whites enjoyed all the rights, but the Negroes, they were the one who suffered. They were one who lacked all the opportunities. So in his speech, Martin Luther King Jr. expressed his views, his prospects of one nation which provides equality to all the people of its nation. Okay, now let's go for the lesson. I have a dream. I am happy to join with you today in what will go down in history as the greatest demonstration for freedom in the history of our nation. So, here Martin begins his speech with happiness. I mean, he was happy because he could express his views, his feelings, his prospects during this demonstration. People, the 250,000 people were gathered near that memorial, Abraham Lincoln Memorial Smaraka. So people were gathered there. They were non-violent. There wasn't any harmful protest. So during this march means not the month here. March, walking with the group. March fast. Haven't you heard March fast? You have done in those who were in NCC or NSS campaign certainly would have done the march fast, like walking in a line in a disciplined manner. So during this march, he expresses that this moment would be a greatest demonstration for freedom in the history of our nation. Their nation means in the America, in the states of America. 50 years ago, a great American in whose symbolic shadow we stand today signed the Emancipation Proclamation. 50 years ago, like 50 years ago, great American, who is that? Who had signed the Emancipation Proclamation? Abraham Lincoln, the 16th President of America, Abraham Lincoln, who signed the Emancipation Proclamation. Now, what is this Emancipation Proclamation? Proclamation means declaration. Emancipation means vimochane. Abraham Lincoln had signed this Emancipation Proclamation, declared that all persons held as slaves within the rebellious states are and henceforth shall be free. ಅಂದರೆ ಆಬ್ರಹಾಂ ಲಿಂಕನ್ ರವರು ಗುಲಾಮ ಪದ್ಧತಿಯ ರದ್ದು ಅಥವಾ ಗುಲಾಮ ಪದ್ಧತಿಯನ್ನು ವಿಮೋಚನೆ ಎಂಬ ಒಪ್ಪಂದಕ್ಕೆ ಸಹಿ ಹಾಕುತ್ತಾರೆ. Abraham Lincoln, the president, who signed this Emancipation Proclamation in order to set free all the slaves. Who are the slaves? They weren't white people. Negroes. Who are Negroes? Negroes are the people who came from Africa. who came from Africa. Although they belong to this country, belong to American states, America, but they were refused to give that equality, that rights which belong to white people. Negroes were always discriminated. So this Emancipation Proclamation made clear that all the slaves had to be free. And after this proclamation, the slaves were not slaves. They were independent citizens. But what does Martin says here? What does he expresses about this proclamation? Is it working today? The proclamation had declared in 1863 and now it is 1963. So he speaks about the discrimination which is still prevailing in the country. See, 100 years later, the life of the Negro is still sadly crippled by the manacles of segregation and the chains of discrimination. Though the proclamation had been declared 100 years ago itself, but there are not much changes happen in the life of the Negro people. The Negro is still sadly crippled, weakened, disabled, angavaikalyate ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ, disabled by the manacles, shackles, handcuffs, the shackles of separation. Segregation means separation. And the chains of discrimination, partiality. 100 years later, the Negro lives on a lonely island of poverty in the midst of a vast ocean of material prosperity. See, here he has taken a Negro and explained metaphorically, ರೂಪಕವಾಗಿ, ಅಂದರೆ how does a Negro live in America or in this country. 100 years later, the Negro lives on a lonely island of poverty. That means, tell me, even today in 2020, when we speak about America or when we think about America, what are the things plopping into our mind? What are the things? The material wealth, no? The Hollywood movies, the pop songs, rap songs, and the tall buildings, luxurious life, the IT sector. We know only that. Only that things comes into our mind. Do anyone know that there is still poverty? There is still discrimination. So, what would be the situation in 1963? Here, he takes an example of Negro metaphorically. He explains that a Negro who lives on a lonely island, the situation of a Negro people, it's like a person who lives in a lonely island of poverty, only poverty. The island means the place, the dry land which covers with water all around, surrounding with the water. In midst, there is only a dry land, and that land also covers with poverty. But outer world is full of material wealth. You can see the material prosperity. vast ocean of material prosperity. That is what I told. That is what I said. We know about America only of its glowing, luxurious life. We do not know other things which was hidden. So the same pain he reveals here. Martin Luther King reveals here. 100 years later, the Negro is still languished in the corners of American society and finds himself an exile in his own land. Even 100 years later, the Negro is still in a weakened, languished, weakened. A person or thing lost its vitality, grows weak. So, and find himself an exile in his own land. Exile, hostile, captain, like a captain of prison. In his own land, he was prison. So we have come here today to dramatize a shameful condition. So in this protest, what we are going to do? We are expressing, we are explaining, we are dramatizing, we are showing what we are going through. Let's go little behind second paragraph. There it is written, 50 years ago, a great American in whose symbolic shadow we stand today signed the Emancipation Proclamation. See here, that sentence I explain. The next sentence I'm going to explain. This momentous declaration came as a great beacon light of hope. So this Emancipation Proclamation brings a light of hope. Beacon means a lighthouse or the signal for guidance. Haven't you seen in a beach, especially in the beach, you can see the lighthouse. What does it do? It shines, it shows the light, it focuses lights all over the water to check what's going on or to show the path to those who don't have light or can't see, to walk on that path. So this Emancipation Proclamation signed by the President of America, Abraham Lincoln, was the light of hope, the beacon light, a guidance light of hope to millions of Negro slaves who had been seared in the flames of withering injustice. Negro slaves who had seared means fried, like chicken was frying, high temperature. So they were fried in the flames of withering injustice. Withering means weakening, diminishing. Injustice. It came as a joyous daybreak to end the long night of their captivity. So due to this proclamation, they had a new light of freedom. They enjoyed that moment. They got their freedom back. So let us stop today here.